Okay, Josh, really quickly, we want to keep your picture, but let folks know here that those who are affected by the Woolsey fire and the Hill fire here, if you have large animals, you can take them to Pierce College. They have an evacuation center set up there. And if you have small animals, you can take those to Borchard Park on North Reno Road in Newbury Park. We want to turn our attention back now to a story we've been following since last night, the Borderline bar shooting. And we understand now that the vigil has begun in that area. We want to take you back to our anchors, Chuck and Colleen, who are live in Thousand Oaks to bring us that. Hey, guys.
That's right. Actually, this vigil has had overflow crowd in attendance. In fact, they had to put some people into an anteroom as well. The theater itself seats about 1,800 people.
It does. It's being held right now at the Thousand Oaks City Council area. Let's listen in to this vigil for the victims of the shooting.
We're fortunate here in the United States to have a long, glorious history of people 200 years ago who had hope. And that hope has sustained our country through many, many challenges. It has sustained communities very much like Thousand Oaks through the exact same tragedies of mass shootings at schools, churches, places of worship. Tonight, Thousand Oaks takes its place with those cities who, in order to move forward, will rely on hope. And hope is in Scripture. Hope is what allows us to believe that there is a better life. Hope is what allows us to go on. Hope is what allows us to do what our loved ones, who we have lost, to move forward, to actually once again smile and laugh and enjoy life. There's an old African proverb that I'd like to share with you in closing. However long the night, the dawn will break. Tonight, we are a hurting city, but we are a community of love, of compassion, and of unity. We are also a community of hope. The dawn will break, and in the morning, we will be more loving, more compassion, more unified, and more full of hope. Because we are, as the sign said as I pulled up, Thousand Oaks strong. I'd like to ask everybody here this evening to stand. Light your e-candle if you haven't already. And at this time, I'd like to introduce Carly Bracco, who will sing our closing song.
Amazing grace, how sweet the sound that saved a wretch like me. I once was lost, but now I'm found. Was blind, but now I see. 'Twas grace that taught my heart to fear, and grace my fears relieved. How precious did that grace appear, the hour I first believed. The Lord has promised promised good to me. His word, my hope secures. He will my shield and portion be, as long as life endures. When we've been there 10,000 years, bright shining as the sun, we've known less days to sing God's praise than when we'd first begun. Amazing grace, how sweet the sound that saved a wretch like me. I once was lost, but now am found. Was blind, but now I see.
This concludes our service. Let's go forth with prayers for the family and their victims, unity in our community, and love for our neighbors. God bless Thousand Oaks.
You see those pictures, those images of the 12 people, including the officer, which would make it, 12 people who were killed last night. It gets to you on a personal level, because this could have been your father, could have been your son, or your daughter. This could have been your community.
A lot of people today referring to Ventura County Sergeant Ron Helas as their guardian angel. There was a tweet, I believe, from the LAPD West LA not too long ago that referred to him that way. Certainly one of the most poignant pictures we saw today had to be when they moved his body from the hospital to the county coroner up here. You saw the outpouring of the community, the support, people on the overpass. Also, outpouring from the first responders, the officers, law enforcement from all over this area stepped in to help out, knowing that this was a community that was grieving.
I guarantee you, if you were here with us tonight, you would feel that same thing. I mean, it is absolutely undeniable. Well, we are covering also these two major fires that kind of surround this area. We want to get you the latest on that as well. So let's go back to the studio now, Michael and Carolyn.
Chuck and Colleen, thank you. We are following these fires here quite closely, because many neighborhoods are under evacuation orders now. About 1,200 homes evacuated in the Dos Vientos area, as well as Camarillo Springs.
Yeah, Josh Kuzo is live over the scene in News Chopper 4 Bravo Forest. And again, I've mentioned it before, you continue to bring us these pretty incredible pictures here.
Hey, that's right. We've been keeping an eye on the blaze as it works its way up and down the hills here at, I believe this is Wildwood Park, and also you can see just some of these flames, how they catch the vegetation there and really spark up that blaze and work their way up the hill. I mean, you see on the left, it's up the hill, and then on the right goes down the hill. And then as the flame doubles back on some of the areas it's already burnt, you can see it starts to slow its pace down a little bit, like in the center of the screen there. Thankfully, it's run out of fuel in the center there.
And we talked about closures on the 101, and I'm looking at Twitter here just 21 minutes ago. CHP Ventura gave us an update, and if we can just stick with your photo here. The 101 is closed in both directions, southbound from Lewis Road to Wendy Drive. and northbound from the 23 to Pleasant Valley Road. All northbound traffic will be diverted to the 23 until further notice, and Botero Road is also closed.
Yeah, so a lot going on in this area. And Josh, you've shown us some of these roads that have been so impacted by cars, both people trying to get out of the area as well as those being diverted off the freeway and just trying to make their way wherever they're trying to get.
Yeah, I mean, that's the 101 closure is making a bad thing worse, but I mean, not that you could drive on the 101, as we saw the flames jumped over that and made crossing the 101 impossible. So just really making the evacuations difficult here. You can see, I think this is the intersection of Upland Road and Santa Rosa. I mean, just all of these 2-lane, 4-lane roads with this many people. We said 1,200 homes in this area evacuated. You can just see how many people that is, and just the strain on these small roads that's going to take.
Josh, at this point, are you able to tell if any of the neighborhoods we were kind of keeping our eye on earlier are still threatened, or is the fire mainly moving in this wildland area?
Well, it's changing as the wind picks up and slows down. So as you can see on the screen, there's lights right at the bottom of the hill. So as this fire continues through the night, I'm sure we'll see the fire get closer and closer. But from this angle, this side of the fire seems to be a little further away, and hopefully it buys them enough time to get out. But as of now, it looks like the rate of spread has slowed a little bit on this side. But the other side will swing around the next time we check in, and I'll show you guys where that was. We saw some flames, and again, we mentioned the spotting when the embers are picked up by this wind and drop down. We saw spotting around a number of properties completely surrounding homes, but firefighters directly on that scene preventing the blaze from spreading to those structures and doing an amazing job.
Yeah, forced to hopscotch around because of these winds. Anthony Yanas is mic'd up and likely ready to go here. So we're talking about these embers, and we're also talking about the winds in this area. Anthony, you want to give us an update?
I do, and I wanted to mention what Carolyn was talking the last time. She asked the question about how fire makes its own weather, and so I've got an illustration here that we can take, and a couple different things here, because you don't necessarily have to have, like, for example, pyrocumulus clouds form in order for this to happen. But what you get is the fire creates updrafts, and so a fire wants to go up. That's what happens. You build a fire in your fireplace, it goes up. It's the same principle you have outside. So you get these updrafts, and that can create pyrocumulus clouds, although sometimes it's just smoke coming up. But within that smoke, you're going to get these sudden downdrafts, and with those sudden downdrafts, you're going to get those spot fires that can form. And many times also on the outer edge of these fires, what you can get are these little fire whirls that form also, and that spreads the fire around too. So there's just a lot that can happen here. And of course, this is updated minute by minute. And so a couple of things to notice here, from Simi Valley and the Woolsey fire to also in Newberry Park with the Hill fire, is the humidity that you have. You're looking at 8% humidity, 9% humidity. Right now you've got gusts at 34 miles per hour. Not as strong at Newberry Park, but again, there's an ebb and flow. But what we're waiting on is, as we get a little bit closer to midnight, what we're going to see in these wind gusts is that range is going to be between 40 and 50 miles per hour, and that's going to stay like that all the way into tomorrow morning. And it's a really dangerous combination that we're going to have here. Oops, I hit the wrong button there. Sorry about that. I meant to go to the next map. But I wanted to show you, we were talking about Calabasas also, and that's just off to the south here. Oh, it's right over the, I'll have to widen out this shot. This Calabasas is just, as you can see, to the south of Simi Valley. So while the flow is off with the winds directly offshore, it's close enough that I know in Calabasas there are concerns.
Yeah.
I was talking to Josh Kuzo in News Chopper 4 Bravo about neighborhoods possibly being threatened, but we do have Conan Nolan on the ground in Newberry Park for us. So we want to go to Conan for an update about how things look there right now. Conan.
You forgive again the mask and the goggles, you can imagine. There's toxicity in the smoke because some of these structures that have burned are actually small mobile homes that have automobiles that went up, and the toxicity that comes from the automobiles, as explained by one of the battalion chiefs we talked to earlier, that is even worse than, of course, what we're getting from the brush. Now, as we see engines come in from Los Angeles County Fire as part of the mutual aid for Ventura County, we also had Oxnard here a second ago. This is Old Conejo Road at Vista Canyon Lane. This has been a problem for hours now, and as you can see, we don't see as much orange as we did about an hour ago. Wind velocity again up and down. It's been kicking up about 20, 30, 40 miles an hour. It seems like at least up to 25 or 30. And on occasion, you will see some spot fires as a result of that. The structure protection, though, continues to take place here in this neighborhood, Montecito Estates. That's where they have, of course, it's been evacuated, power's out, people have left, nobody can drive back in to help take things out of their homes. We have seen people actually walk here, they're allowed to do that, but then they got to cart whatever they need to take from their home and take it back to their car, or where they're able to stage outside the neighborhood, which is at least, 600, 700 yards away. Now, I'll show you right here behind me, obviously, that transformer snapped off. As a result, we believe of the fire, not so much of the wind, but we're, to be honest, not really sure exactly. But there's power lines down here. We saw Southern California Edison a second ago. They were down here, obviously, trying to figure out what it's going to take to restore power to this once this emergency is over. To the left, they were able to tap into a couple of fire hydrants, very handy at this point, and they were able to use that to cable up or hose up, put a line, drop a line down up that road, that ramp, to another structure, looked like a commercial structure. We were up there, but then we realized that despite the mask that we had on, there are toxins being burned. We had to get out because these masks don't guard against that. That's also part of the problem. So once again, they've lost a few structures here, heavily evacuated. We know that part of this fire has made its way into the burn scar from a previous fire a few years back. There's less vegetation to burn there. That has helped. Right now, the wind has died down for the time being, but that's unlikely to stay that way, especially after what we heard from Fritz Coleman. And the fire crews here maintaining their structure protection for the rest of this neighborhood and community, wanted to make sure that there aren't any spot fires that make their way into the neighborhoods or onto the patio furniture or into the embers, part of the ember cast from this fire, into the roofs and ceilings of some of these structures. That's a big concern. But it appears right now that everything remains under control in terms of fire getting into some of these more dense neighborhoods, at least at our location. Back to you.
All right, Conan, thank you for that. We want to mention that Camarillo's Pleasant Valley School District will be closed tomorrow because of the Hill Fire.
And one other note here, Carolyn, CSU Channel Islands campus will also be closed tomorrow because of the poor air quality. All classes and activities canceled for tomorrow. You're watching an extended version of the NBC4 News at 6, and we want to get back to our continuing coverage of the Borderline bar shooting. Yeah, that's right. We want to take you back to Chuck and Colleen live in Thousand Oaks.
All right, Michael and Carolyn, you know, the one thing we hear from everyone out here is no one can really wrap their mind around what happened last night, how this young man, 28 years old, a guy who spent 4.5 years as a U.S. Marine, he did a tour in Afghanistan. We don't know how he was discharged, but, you know, he grew up around here. He went to Newberry High School. He, at last check, was at CSUN. He was taking some classes there in 2016. We understand that people recognized him at the bar because he'd been there before. He apparently patronized this area. So the big question at this point is why? What triggered this mass shooting?
One of the victims told us that he'd actually seen him on 3 previous occasions.
Correct.
At the bar itself. Now, just about 10 or 12 minutes ago, we took you live inside that vigil that was going on. Overflow crowd there. We want to thank Robert Kavasi. It was his crew, the only one able to get in there and bring that to us live. An emotional service. Let's go to Robert live right now, who's probably talking with some people coming out. Robert?
Chuck and Colleen, it was emotional and it was beautiful, and we had an ugly moment immediately after the service ended. Deputy Chief Joe May with Simi Valley Police Department, a lot of screaming, a lot of yelling. A poster was ripped up. There was a lot of anger going on outside. What happened?
Well, we had an individual who was expressing his freedom of speech and his right to do that, and it was the type of thing that was very inflammatory to the people who were attending the event here tonight. I couldn't exactly hear everything that he was shouting about, but I think he was shouting about the military and killers and things like that. And obviously the people that were here to mourn the loss of all the people who were killed last night. And his comments became quite inflammatory.
Little you could do except to allow him to express it and try to move him away.
Yeah, there was actually two things we were trying to do. We need to protect his right to free speech. We also need to protect him from the people who were attending the event. They're getting quite angry, and maybe it's rightful that they did that, but we still have to provide him protection. So it got to the point where he's inciting the people. He's creating a situation where he's going to get hurt, and we had to remove him.
A time and a place for everything, Chief. Joe, I want to talk about Simi Valley and your department. Simi Valley and Thousand Oaks, of course, consider themselves to be sister cities.
Absolutely.
You share training, you all know each other, and last night when that call came out, Simi Valley PD moved in. Tell us what happened.
Absolutely. When the call came out, we received a request to assist, and a sergeant and about 5 or 6 of our officers responded from Simi Valley. And from our city limit to the borderline is maybe 7 or 8 miles. And our officers and the sergeant deployed out there, assisted the Sheriff's Department and CHP, who are already on scene, entering the facility. Ventura Police, Oxnard Police also showed up, and we all worked together as a team the way that we've trained individually with our departments, the way we've trained together to go in there and try to settle down a chaotic situation, make some rescues if we can, and try to just help out.
What did the men and women of the Simi Valley Police Department who were there tell you today about what they witnessed and what they experienced?
Well, one of the things that they saw is, of course, they saw the crime scene, and we heard last night how Sheriff Jeff Dean described the scene, that it was just horrific with all the victims there, as well as the Sheriff Sergeant when they first got there. Sheriff's Department, Highway Patrol, Simi Valley Police Department working together to try to rescue him, pull him out of the scene, and then going in to the bar itself, trying to identify if the shooter is still in there and to provide any rescues of any surviving victims and first aid or anything that we could do to try and help out.
When you look at the situation, and of course you knew the deputy that was the sergeant that was killed, and this has got to, it's almost that your shared departments, what happened to the law enforcement in Ventura County, here in Thousand Oaks. We're all Ventura County. We're all Eastern Ventura County. This is your loss as well.
Absolutely. I mean, our hearts pour out to Ventura County Sheriff's Office, but it's not just the Sheriff's Department, it's all of Thousand Oaks, the other victims of this as well. But when we're talking law enforcement, we work together for a common goal to provide public safety. And when we lose one of our own, whether it's with the Simi Valley Police Department, Ventura County Sheriff's Department, or any law enforcement that we work with, it's just a sad day and heavy, heavy heart.
Deputy Chief Joe May is going to retire in just a matter of weeks after we've worked together for so many years. Is it tough to leave on this note?
Absolutely. I do have a few more months left, but it's hard to leave on this note. It's hard to work on this note. It's hard to realize that this note happens all the time. And it's just a sad narrative that we have going on, not only for law enforcement being attacked, but just people getting attacked in general. And I'm just proud that there are men and women out there that will stand that line. And there's a line of people behind me that will come in and do the job, and they will do excellent work. And they do excellent work today.
Joe May, thank you very much. It's been my honor to work with you all these decades. Again, this was 1,800 people that were here tonight. At capacity, they had to pull them out. The man that was leading this beautiful ceremony inside of the Civic Arts Plaza, come on, Mayor, I know you're shy. This is Mayor Andy Fox. For those of you who were up in the middle of the night with NBC4 last night, Mayor Andy Fox works for the Los Angeles Fire Department. The mayor was on his way home from a retirement party because he is leaving the LAFD when you got the news. And today, in just hours, 18 hours, you all in the city came together for this beautiful celebration. Andy, what did you tell the people that gathered here tonight and the people that were gathering outside that couldn't even get inside?
Well, we wanted to come together as a community, and as I mentioned earlier, it's never too soon to start praying and loving your neighbor. And so we wanted to start the healing process as soon as we could. And as you pointed out, we had well over 1,800 people here, representatives from the different faith-based groups. And we came together, we prayed, and we supported one another. And I think we started that healing process for those families.
The wind is so very strong. This is the reason, of course, why we didn't go have this outside, because of the winds. Andy, I want to touch on that. Don't let me forget. But have you heard from anyone from Washington, D.C.? Have you heard from any of our leaders back east in regards to what happened here?
We have. I've heard from our Senate leaders. They were actually contemplating coming out tonight. We did hear from the White House earlier. And so,
did you speak to the president?
I have not yet, but they made overtures that we may be getting a phone call.
What did the White House say to you?
They talked to our staff, so I didn't actually talk, but they wanted to know my availability to talk to the president. And then, of course, our congresswoman is here, right. Our state assembly member is here. So, and I have to say, I'm getting calls and texts on my cell phone from mayors, council members, governors from all over the country. The support has been absolutely tremendous.
When we move forward in the investigation, what are you hearing in terms of what is going on inside of Borderline at this point?
The law enforcement folks we have that are working in conjunction with the FBI, I have full confidence that they're going to get to the bottom of exactly what happened, how it happened, and why it happened. They are very good professionals. Right now, I think we need to focus on what we are. That's support for the family, putting our arms around the community, making sure that all of us here in Thousand Oaks feel good about how we've supported those in need.
And when you move forward, and when you speak to President Trump at some point, and when you speak to these leaders in the Senate and the House, what will you tell them as the mayor of Thousand Oaks?
I'm just going to let them know what we're doing here in Thousand Oaks. We're a community, and as I mentioned before, we may be 130,000 folks, which in California that's considered a big city, but we are neighbors, and so we're going to support one another, and we're going to pray for one another, and we're going to be there as a community.
Mayor Andy Fox, thank you for taking the time to talk to us. Chuck and Colleen, let's go back to you.
All right, thank you very much, Robert Kovacic. Well, it is just a minute or so after 7 o'clock. We know a lot of people are coming home, our home, tuning in. We just want to bring you up to date on what is the very latest and why we are here. Tonight, as we saw just about 20 minutes ago, hundreds of family, friends, and strangers, they all gathered where Robert Kovacic was in solidarity for victims of the Borderline bar shooting.
That's what you're seeing right here. This candlelight vigil wrapped up about 20 minutes ago at the Civic Arts Plaza in Thousand Oaks. Just to recap, as Chuck said, 12 people were killed, 22 others injured after a gunman walked into the bar at 11:20 last night and opened fire. And this is the deputy, right. Deputy Ron Helis. We talk about retirement. This gentleman was 29 years with Ventura County Sheriff's Department. He was at least a year away from retiring himself.
There's no question that he saved lives last night, many, many people. And we have the identities of some of the victims, many young adults, and because this was college night at the bar, the gunman shot and then killed himself. But we also saw a video of where he was shooting at people who were already down. This 28-year-old former Marine served time in Afghanistan. Authorities have now searched his home. He was living there with his mother in Moore Park for evidence, and hopefully they'll find a motive. But in many of these shootings like this, we never understand what the motive is. There was also an urgent need for blood donations. 2 blood centers going on right now. One at Lorena High School, and the other one was over at the Best Western in Thousand Oaks.
Archbishop Jose Gomez, the LA Archdiocese, will take part in a community prayer vigil tonight as well for the victims of this shooting. Our Beverly White is with him at a church in Thousand Oaks. Beverly?
That's right, Colleen. The church is St. Pascal Baylon, and it's on Jans Road. With me now, as you indicated, is the Archbishop of LA, Ventura, and Santa Barbara counties, speaking with us about the occasion. Sir, I know it's a sad time for the community. You're telling me this gathering is a community prayer vigil, and it's not just for people of faith. Is that right?
That's correct. It's open to everybody, and we just want to come together and especially pray for the victims of this tragedy and their families. I think it's important for all of us to be together in this challenging time.
Yes, sir. And I realize it starts at 7:30, so some folks are in their cars right now. Others may be boxed out of the previous vigil because it was an overflow gathering. It sounds like all are welcome here, correct?
That's correct. Yeah, we are open to anybody that wants to come, and just to show that unity that we have in this tragic moment. And I think it is it's good for us to think about our faith and the way that we can be together. I think it is a moment to reflect on the importance of praying for peace in our country and in our communities, and also to feel that we support each other.
Sir. And Archbishop, tell me this. There's a program that starts at 7:30. I know you're the officiant, but others will be speaking as well. Do you know the other guests who are scheduled to attend?
Obviously, the one that's going to give the main speech is the pastor, Father Michael, and then Michael Rocha, and also there is a message of the, we have in each one of those, the regions of the Archdiocese, we have an auxiliary bishop, so the auxiliary bishop is also send a message. So, and then I think some of the people in the community are going to participate too.
Okay, I understand the mayor just might be here. We heard him speaking a moment ago about how it is a good time now more than ever to pray for your neighbors. I understand that's exactly what you plan to do. If you don't mind me asking you a personal question, sir, how did you get the news about the disaster, the massacre last evening?
Well, I got it this morning when I got up, and I was, as we all do, I have my iPhone, and I had a text, a friend of mine letting me know that this tragedy happened. And at that moment, I started praying and thinking that we need to be together and ask God for His protection during these challenging times, especially for the victims and their families, and for the community, because it is so sad and so tragic that I think what helps us in these difficult situations is to be together and also count on the presence of God in our lives.
Sir, we learned being here last evening when it first evolved, people wanted to talk, and I'm sure they'll want to talk and pray in this space. Starting at 7:30, we're again at the church. I want to make sure I get the name right. St. Pascal Baylon at 155 East Jans Road. The previous vigil started at 6. This one starts at 7:30. So if you're thinking of coming out, now might be a good time. We see lots of spaces on the parking lot. A lovely sanctuary waiting for you. Reporting live in Thousand Oaks, I'm Beverly White. Back to you in studio.
Thank you, Beverly. Some of these vigils tonight are almost impromptu. Sean Adler, he was one of the victims who was killed last night. He was working over at the borderline trying to make a few extra dollars, but he also owns a coffee shop in Simi Valley.
NBC4's Gordon Tokamatsu is live at the coffee shop with more on that. And Gordon, look at the crowd there. It has grown so much since we saw you last.
Yeah, it sure has, Colleen. You know, you can really take the measure of a man by the friends that he makes over his life, and by that measure, you know, you can really say that Sean Adler is somebody who is very, very successful and popular in life. Take a look at this crowd. I'm looking at maybe 100, possibly more than that, gathering here. I'm not sure that anyone expected this many people to show up here in Simi Valley, right outside this coffee shop, Rivalry Roasters. This was Sean Adler's dream. It's the place that he put together just a year ago. He opened it in October of 2017 with his partner. And I'm joined here now by Chris Montez, who's a friend of Sean's from way back. Now, you told me, sir, that you actually carried him when he was a little infant.
Yeah, I watched him grow up, and sometimes he'd be running down the street because his father would be yelling and he did something wrong.
Yeah.
But I saw all that, him and his sister.
Tell me about this man, because all we've been hearing about is this incredible work ethic. What was he like?
He was just a beautiful young person, you know, was always eager to do things, you know. And his father was a teacher, and his mother was also, and so he had motivation.
Did you know that he wanted to become a sheriff's deputy at one point?
Oh, well, I'm always on the road, so I didn't get to see him too much other than when he lived down the street.
Yeah.
Yeah, I saw him about a year ago.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And now this horrible, horrible tragedy happens. How does it strike you in your heart, sir?
It makes me cry. I've been crying all day a little because I think about holding him, playing with him. And the young girl, she used to come to my house all the time, which was my daughter's friend, Mariette.
When was the last time you saw him and spoke with him or his family?
About a year ago.
About a year ago.
Yeah.
And what was his state of mind? What did he tell you?
He was always happy, eager, you know. He had other businesses he was involved with. I remember that. He opened his first business, but other than that was it.
Well, thank you very much, Chris Montez. Again, a very close friend of the family of Sean Adler's here. It's really a fascinating story. This gentleman was 47 years old last year. As we mentioned, he had gone to train to become a Ventura County Sheriff's deputy. During training, he suffered a heart attack, and that derailed his plans for a law enforcement career. And he didn't stop for a second. He got right back on the horse, decided he was going to go into the gourmet coffee business, and that is how Rivalry Roasters was founded. And as we said, he opened it in October of 2017. He was beloved, as you can tell by this enormous crowd. These folks are gathered here to pay respects, of course, to Sean Adler, who was tragically killed last night, but also to leave messages and flowers and sign a condolence book that's right up there in the middle of the shop. And they're going to be back here again, same time, same place, because quite frankly, this crowd is so big, they're not going to be able to accommodate every single person who wants to pay respects to Sean Adler tonight. That's the latest from here. Back to you, Chuck and Colleen.
What we are seeing really is comfort in community, comfort in companionship. What we are not seeing and what we do not know is what was the motive here? What triggered this young man who grew up around here to walk into this nightclub and open fire on unsuspecting party people? I mean, they were enjoying themselves, college kids, line dancing, you know, just having a fun Wednesday night.
Those are just some of the questions that several agencies who are working on the investigation right now are trying to find out. For more on the investigation, we want to go to NBC4's Kim Baldonado, who's here at the command center. Kim?
Yeah, Chuck and Colleen, that is the question that everyone is asking tonight. Why did this happen? What was the motive behind it? Take a look at video of the suspected shooter's home in Newberry Park. Ian Long's home there. Detectives spent 4 to 5 hours today combing through it, looking for anything that would lead them to a motive. They ended up carrying out boxes and bags of evidence. They even had a technology sniffing dog named Ginger. This is the first time they've used this dog, which can specifically sniff out USB drives and memory sticks. Investigators hoping anything electronic that may help them discover a motive as well. Ventura County Sheriff's is taking the lead on this, but the FBI is assisting because the FBI has a lot more resources than the local Sheriff's Department does, especially when it comes to analyzing forensic evidence and technology. So at this point, they are saying they do not have any possible motive, but they're hoping whatever they may have found inside that home, whatever digital evidence they may have found, may help them answer that question. Chuck and Colleen.
We see a picture of the shooter, who's 28 years old, on your screen right there. You know, one of the things we didn't see tonight, and especially evident where Gordon Takamatsu was, and also at the vigil Robert Kavasi was, not one person on a cell phone. Mm-hmm. Everybody was actually talking to another human being, embracing one another. You know,
it is
how rare that is to see these days.
It's why I say comfort in companionship. Yeah. That's where people are turning to. They're turning to their neighbors today. Again, there's another big story out here this evening, and it has to be these 2 fires, especially the Hill Fire, which really exploded to 10,000 acres from just 2:15 this afternoon.
So we want to go back to Michael Brownlee and Carolyn Johnson in the studio.
Yeah, thank you both. We've been following this here from the news studio. We have 2 helicopters overhead of the fire at any given time. And right now, we do have Josh Kuzo in News Chopper 4 Bravo. This is the Hill Fire, where there are mandatory evacuations affecting parts of Newberry Park. Josh.
Hey, Caroline, that's right. We have a lot of developments here. So my pilot's been talking to the air controller in the area, and we have word that there's 40-mile-per-hour winds here. So the winds continue to build, and we've seen with those winds build, they're picking up the embers, as we mentioned previously with the spotting. So if I zoom out, you'll just see quite a number of very large blazes as the wind, those very fast winds, push this fire and blaze into new parts of vegetation. And we've seen over the past 15 to 20 minutes a drastically increased rate of spread as this spreads into very heavy vegetation and even spotting. So when the wind picks up those embers, I'll try and zoom out. We just had a spot up, but I guess it's been engulfed by the line there. The spot was right there. You can see it kind of sticks out, but the rate of spread again is so fast. I'll have to stop down here and darken it up just so you can see. The rate of spread is so fast that it's catching up to where it's spotting. It's very, very dangerous. So I'll zoom out here and show you again. We mentioned it going uphill with these winds. It pushes all of that fire uphill, and it makes it a lot easier for the vegetation above the fire to catch, and you can just see it in there. It's just a mess of flame.
Talked about really keeping an eye on these winds, especially from midnight to 7 a.m. But it looks as if Anthony Yana is here. We can bring him to the conversation here. He's talking about 40-mile-an-hour winds here right now, and this is almost nearly double what we were talking about earlier.
And that's what we were talking about. But as we move throughout the next several hours, all the way to midnight, overnight to 7 o'clock in the morning, I don't have the winds really getting back to the 20-mile-per-hour range until we get to probably noon tomorrow. So it's just really tough. And as long as there's fuel, this is going to continue to spread. And so this is the current wind speeds that I have. And you're looking at this. Now, again, there's different spots here. This is a set spot. So this is a set spot in Simi Valley where the Woolsey fire is, and a set spot at Newberry Park. And so you can be maybe to the south of this or to the west or to the east, for example, and you'll have those 40-mile-per-hour winds. And so what you're going to see is a fluctuation with these. But I do want to get you a forecast as we move forward all the way throughout the rest of the evening. And what you're seeing are 27 to 33-mile-per-hour consistent winds and wind gusts in the mid-40s, close to 50 miles per hour at 11 o'clock tonight into the overnight hours. They just get stronger at 2 o'clock in the morning. And here you are close to 50 miles per hour. There's Calabasas off to the south that's really close, as you can see, to the Woolsey fire, if this is able to just make a little jog off to the south as far as building with that fuel. And then tomorrow morning, do you see how we really don't have anything less than 44-mile-per-hour winds from Newberry Park up to the north? It's only at Calabasas where you actually see a weaker wind. And so that's the big concern as we move throughout the rest of the night.
I feel like we don't often see that purple color on your maps for that wind speed either.
Right. This is a really strong Santa Ana event. And so we've had 2 of these so far this fall. We've had a few weak ones. This is another strong one. And we had another one that was really strong. We just didn't have any fires that broke out. This one, what's the difference? You've got a fire with the winds, and so really tough out there. And again, whenever you see, and we were talking about this before, the flames just lie down, and the slope's not too big here. That's a strong wind because it's not able to build up. That's the natural movement. It's just lying down because the wind is blowing it like that. And you're even seeing just these mini fire whirls on the corner, and that really helps pick up those embers and then move them to new spots.
Okay, we're looking at a live shot here from News Chapter 4 Bravo. Our reporter on the ground, Conan Nolan, is essentially in that same area there. We want to check in with him to see what you're in the midst of here right now, Conan.
That's right. We're still with the LA County Fire. We have a Southern California Edison, I believe, here, as they're monitoring some of the power lines that are down. Of course, all electricity cut off here. This is the Old Conejo Road and Vista Canyon Lane. And this is an area that received a lot of attention. They believe they've been able to keep most of the flames that were coming down that canyon wall. Did not make its way into the neighborhood where I'm standing, with the exception of one house. Now, over on this side, there were 1 or 2 structures that were burned. That was problematic when they had some automobiles burning, lots of fumes coming off, lots of chemicals, toxicity in the air. And as you can see behind me, that's an example of part of the problem here, is that they've had a couple of power lines, that transformer come down. The people here were evacuated a while ago. They were told they could come back periodically, but not in a car. They had to walk in order to get anything out of their homes. We've seen some of that. But for the most part, the wind dies down and picks up. It's fine right now. I can take this mask off for the time being, but in a few minutes, it'll be back up. And we've been seeing 30, 35 mile an hour gusts, enough to blow things over here. And so in this part, this finger of the fire, things look pretty good for right now. But as you can point out, we have all sorts of little embers that have popped up on the side of the road. That's not really a problem. But when the wind picks up, and as you can see, it's doing it a little bit now, that what they call the ember cast starts to develop, and those things start to fly. And that's what their biggest worry about is the embers flying off little fire spots, like spot fires like this, going up quarter of a mile, a half mile, and then igniting the patio furniture off a neighborhood, and then all of a sudden, boom, you've got yourself another problem. But as it stands right now, it appears that the worst is over. At least that's the hope. Back to you.
All right, let's go back up to Josh Kuzo now in News Chopper 4 Bravo. And what are you seeing there for us, Josh? We notice, are those people there along the sidelines? I couldn't quite make it out.
Hey, so yeah, we found 2 firefighters with flares, and they're starting a backburn to try and burn into this fire and cut off vegetation and cut off fuel from that main fire. And I'll zoom out here so you can see the main fire I'm referencing. I mean, it's a very large blaze there in the center of your screen. They're trying to cut off, again, the vegetation and prevent the spread across that path that they're on, because as you can see, there's some roads and some structures down there. The power's cut, so we won't be able to see too much, but you can see 2 vehicles in the center of your screen there. That's probably what the 2 firefighters on your screen there drove up, and you can see a number there around the engine. So I'll zoom out again, see if we can see any structures in the darkness, but it doesn't seem like it. Again, those 2 firefighters holding flares, doing backburns to try and cut off that fire and starve it from fuel.
It's a tough one. Backburns with these kind of winds. Right. It seems like something they're desperate here to get this under control. So
ominous pictures in the video that we're seeing here. Those, all the darkened, blackened areas, and of course these raging flames. I don't know if we mentioned here when Colleen and Chuck tossed back to us, but this has grown to, we're estimating anywhere from, 8 to 10,000 acres.
And that was an estimate we have to keep in mind from several hours ago.
Right,
and from what we've seen from News Chopper 4 Bravo, it has really increased. That's quite an image you have for us there now, Josh, where you can see that firefighter sort of backlit by the flames.
Yeah, again, he's using that flare. He's starting the backburn on there, just going up and down the path, lighting it up, taking away vegetation from this fire to try and cut it off and cut the spread off. And I'll zoom in here. You can see he keeps putting the flare to that brush, and the brush is so dry and brittle, it just lights right up, and then the wind is going to carry that right into the main blaze there.
Wow, unbelievable. All right, again, another one of their firefighting techniques here. We also want to tell you, as we stick with your picture here, your video here, Josh, that's CSU Channel Islands. The campus will be closed tomorrow. All classes, all activities canceled until further notice, likely resuming on Monday. And Cal Lutheran, I checked the website there, classes there canceled because of the tragic shooting that we've been covering here as well. Classes are scheduled to get back in session there come Monday.
And in Camarillo, the Pleasant Valley School District is shutting down tomorrow as well because of the Hill Fire. We've mentioned there are some voluntary evacuations underway right now with respect to the Woolsey fire. And right now, Agora Hills and Calabasas still under voluntary evacuations, Bell Canyon under a mandatory evacuation order.
And with Calabasas and Agora Hills, even though they're voluntary evacuations, they're asking people there to get their pets prepared, get anything and everything you need ready to go at a moment's notice and head south into Los Angeles.
And people who have issues with asthma or other breathing problems are also being encouraged to consider heading south toward LA for strictly the air quality reasons. You bring up a good point, having that go bag ready, getting your medications in order, any documents that you may need. It's always a good idea to think ahead and be prepared for the worst.
And we saw evidence of that with Conan here not too long ago with that couple. I mean, I believe I saw the woman carrying a couple of paintings or pictures.
She was, yes.
But he also mentioned that they were at the ready with their medications, and they were on foot because they weren't allowed to drive their cars within that area at that particular time.
Yeah, things you don't often think about, but when we have an event like this, it does make you realize the need to be prepared.
All right, let's bring in Anthony Yadas here. We heard about these winds. Josh mentioned that 40-mile-an-hour gusts at this point, and we're expecting it to progressively get worse over the overnight hours.
I think we'll have a range of 40 to 50 miles per hour from now all the way through 7, 8, 9 o'clock tomorrow morning. And I think that's going to be the big problem with this. Conan mentioned this too. There are times when it does calm a little bit, but that doesn't help the fire because it might calm a little bit. The fire doesn't go away. And then once those gusts pick up again, then you're back to it spreading. And you're just seeing an example of this as the flames completely lie down. I do have some new information, Carolyn. You were mentioning the Woolsey fire. Now 1,000 acres on that, 0% contained. And the concern with that is if there's any kind of southerly movement, even though the winds move in that Santa Ana direction, not completely toward Calabasas, it doesn't take much to get an ember or two off to the south and you've got a new fire there. But the firefighters are doing everything they can, as you can see, to kind of keep the fuel in place, burn out to where it's not going to continue to spread, because the thing that'll hurt you is all of the fuel that's available.
All right, so Anthony, appreciate that. And again, we'll of course keep an eye on both of these fires burning here in Southern California.
But now we want to turn our attention back to the Borderline bar shooting, and we have Chuck and Colleen in Thousand Oaks for us right now.
Well, thank you. You know, seeing the picture of that firefighter all by himself out there trying to light those backfires, I mean, there is an example of a hero. And countless times here, we have heard about heroes. Not only Sergeant Ron Helios, who went in and saved countless lives, but also people who were in the club that night who helped others out. We've heard numerous stories from people who would help people out. They helped to break out a window when the smoke grenades went off.
They threw their bodies on top of other patrons in there. Let's not forget the first responders.
Right.
You know, when you mention the Borderline bar in this area, everybody knows what you're talking about and where it is. NBC4's Kim Tobin is live now with reaction from a victim's friend, and she's just up the street from us. Kim?
Hey, you guys, good evening. Yeah, actually, we've been out here in this neighborhood, and it's very somber, very quiet right now. But we've been going up and down talking to neighbors here because this is in the cul-de-sac, really almost as close as you can get to that bar and grill that was so well known in this community. And I talked to two people. I talked to that friend earlier again of Justin Meek, who was just heartbroken. But also, I talked to two people who were going inside and they heard those gunshots last night.
And all of a sudden we heard like pop, pop, and then there was like a sudden break, and then it was rapid, just pop, 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 and then which continued, and then there was another break, and we just looked, and we were like, wait, what was that? We looked because we can practically see it.
What was even running through your head last night when you were so close to it and hearing that?
I was just really sad. You know, we stood up all night just waiting to hear what would happen. That was all, just hoping for the best.
And again, talking to a lot of these neighbors, they say this is their community, one of the safest communities that they know. They never imagined that something like this would happen so close to home, and they are all mourning tonight here in Thousand Oaks. I'm Kim Tobin. I'll send it back to you, Chuck and Colleen.
You know, the one word we hear over and over again out here today is community, how resilient this community is, how this one thing will not define this community. We're also hearing about heroes, the officers you mentioned, the people who were inside.
The community, it's not just a word. It's something that you actually see here. People hugging people, people talking to people, people trying to help people. You just feel it. It's in the air. It seems to be everywhere. Well, Lester Holt has the NBC Nightly News, and he is in Thousand Oaks tonight. That's coming up next, and we'll see you back at 11.